Hello, darling. How are you?
Hi, happy to see you. How are you?
Same. Happy to see you. I'm good. Very excited for the recording of our first episode.
Oh my God, are we really doing this?
Yes, we are.
How are we going to start the first episode?
Okay, so this first episode is all about setting the scene, let people know who we are, how we got here, and what is this podcast about.
Yes. I think the first season is all about finding our people and finding people who think like us and trusting that the algorithm gods will put this content in front of the people who need to see it. This is going to be a big, fuck around and find out, as if we know, baby.
As if we know.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Kat, maybe we can start and just tell a bit about ourselves to start with.
Sure. So I'm Kath. I'm originally from Cape Town. I've been living in Brussels for the past 7 years. I work in strategy and communication, and I'm really interested in how humans connect with themselves, with each other, and with the world around them. And that's what I'm looking forward to getting into in this show.
Yeah.
Tell me about you.
A bit more about me. So I'm Alvio. Hi, everyone. I'm a creative and business strategist. I'm originally from Brussels, but spent most of my career abroad, from New York City creative studio to Luxembourg financial institutions. I've always been curious about the big concept of life, and that's why we're here today. Explore them.
Nice. Let's get into it.
Yes. So maybe we can start with who is this podcast for? And I think if you've been feeling a bit like us, like we feel that we have followed the path for life, met kind of all the expectation, not all, but most
Our
of
version
them.
of the expectations.
Yeah, exactly. But still like something feels a bit off, and we end up with the question of, okay, what the hell am I doing with my life? You know?
Yeah, I think we've been having a lot of conversations with each other, with people in our lives, with friends, with colleagues. And there seems to be this general kind of feeling of either feeling a little stuck and directionless, or frankly, just overwhelmed with the pace of change in the world. People have a bit of a sense of whiplash almost, where things are changing so rapidly and so quickly that we're struggling to kind of keep pace with that. And that applies to so many different areas of life. Maybe it's the world of work that's changing for you. Maybe it's the world of family. Maybe it's relationships. Maybe it's creativity, connection. All of these things are undergoing rapid change in the world, and it can be kind of scary to keep up with it.
Yes, exactly. I feel like that there is actually like a gap on how fast like things are changing, and how fast also like we can adapt to those change. And that's where also like it comes, you know, like that gap and feeling a bit lost, you know.
Yeah, it's a feeling a lot of us have, but it's not so often discussed. And I think what that does is people can have the sense that, damn, like, am I the problem? Am I the reason why my life isn't where I thought it might be, or why I'm not living up to the expectations that I had for myself as I was growing up, or when I was just starting out? And I think, we sense that feeling in ourselves and in kind of people in our network, and we want this to be a space where we can actually have that conversation and really recognize that a lot of us are feeling this way, and we don't have to kind of figure this out alone. Like, let's talk through it and kind of work through it together.
And see where it can go and lead us, you know.
Exactly. So maybe we can get into what's causing this feeling. And our hypothesis is that it all comes down to what we call the blueprints of life. So what are the blueprints of life, Alvio?
I would say that they are like the general rules for the game of life, in a way, like the map that we need to navigate with like some sort of rules on how things are supposed to work, and the way we follow it. And like, I think that's what a blueprint is for us.
Yeah, I think it's essentially the kind of foundational idea that either we were taught expressly by our parents or school or the world around us, or maybe it wasn't so expressly taught and it was kind of just completely assumed or unspoken, and it's so much the default expectation that nobody even says it out loud or names it, and because it kind of goes unspoken, we don't even realize that we have the opportunity to question that blueprint. And I think now, because the world is changing so much, it's kind of becoming obvious that those blueprints don't really fit anymore. And so we really feel like we actually have that opportunity now to kind of call them out and really interrogate them and really dig deeper into them and understand maybe why they're not working well, and maybe even how we could reimagine them to work better for us.
True. It's a bit like we take back our power on it, because it was just like at some point, if we feel that we don't match and we don't know how to follow these blueprints, we feel we can take it personally, like we are the problem. But then when we take a step back and start to see and to question them and to challenge them, oh, well, it was supposed to work that way at that point, but maybe like today they are out of date, they don't apply. So that is a way for us to take our power back and just like to reinvent a bit the rule and of the game of life.
Yeah, exactly. So I think what we're seeing now is because those old blueprints don't work, we're almost being forced to reshape or question or reimagine them. And we're kind of realizing that we don't have to do things the way that they've always been done. The challenge that we now face, of course, is if those old blueprints don't work, where are the new ones? And so it's almost, it feels like we're kind of in this in-between phase where it's very clear that the old ones don't work, but the new ones aren't necessarily fully formed yet, right? We all know, again, to go back to the work example, the world of work is changing so rapidly. What does the future of work look like? We're kind of figuring it out as we go. And so, again, it really feels like we're in this moment right now where we get to actually have a voice and have a say and imagine for ourselves, how can we actually reinvent this space and make it work for us?
Yeah, I think as you said, like we are kind of in between the one that did work and the one that should still be written. And I feel like, yes, it is scary, but it is also like a great opportunity for us to be able like to do that and reinvent the wheel, you know, as we want, and just like see how together as a whole we can do as well, like how we can share what we learn. And I think that's why we are here also today. We want to build that kind of community, to be able like to share our insights, to be able to share just like what we think about life today, how we think it's going to evolve, and how we can adapt and go there together, you know, just like.
And I think what's exciting to me is that we don't have to figure this out alone. And indeed, as you said, I think this is exactly the reason why we wanted to create this space, because as much as many of us are feeling, you know, maybe confused or overwhelmed by a lot of these spaces that are changing so rapidly, there actually are signals out there in the world that can kind of light the way for us on some of these new paths forward. So there are people out there who are already kind of doing things differently, reinventing things on their own terms. And we would love to kind of take some inspiration from those stories, from people who are really just forging these new ways forward, and kind of reinventing those blueprints in real time, and really kind of take some inspiration from them, you know, to really just be emboldened and encouraged that we can do things differently and we can figure those paths out for ourselves.
Yeah. So I think like we come back to really what we want to do with this podcast is really like to question, challenge the old blueprints that were given to us, and like write new ones to give a bit more meaning also and purpose into our life, and I think have more fun with it in general.
Of course, that's the thing. These conversations can feel heavy and very serious. Like, if life feels like it's not working exactly as you planned, that can be a bit of a like, oh shit kind of moment. And I think we have no choice but to kind of face this and face it together. So let's do that, and let's see how we can kind of bring a little bit of fun and lightness to the conversation. So I think in terms of what you can expect from every episode, we want to cover a new topic every episode for how those blueprints are changing, how we want to question and interrogate the old blueprint, but also how we can kind of take some inspiration from those who are already out there in that space, kind of reinventing the wheel and doing it differently.
Exactly. And the way we do it, it's completely part aperitivo, part group therapy, because we don't have it all figured out at all. We are just like going with you and then learning and just like,
Yeah, we're all learning as we go. And I think that's the main idea, is how do we bring together other people who are seeking, who are curious, who are questioning, and how do we kind of just, get through it together.
Okay, so maybe we can dive deeper and just like tell people why us, why now, and how we got there.
Yes, so we met each other and we were kind of at the same stage of life. Both of us were at a phase where we felt like we were wanting to pivot, we were wanting to make a bit of a change and leap into something more meaningful. But we couldn't really see how, and we were kind of figuring out that path in real time, and I would say we're probably still figuring it out a little bit.
For sure.
And maybe we can just share a little bit about how we actually came to that point.
The big shift for me that brought me here was really like to saying no, like to what would look from the outside, from a perfect like career or perfect job. So since forever, I've always wanted like to move to America, to have like a career and a job there. And so yes, as we just like said earlier, like I followed the path. I went to school, studied well, got my degree, and then life working its magic. I got that opportunity where I actually like found a job in New York City in one of like the best like creative agency there.
The dream.
And the dream, yes. So it started like with an internship, and then like, slowly like working my way up. So yes, just living the dream. The first few years were like perfect. Loved the work that we were delivering. We were working like with very like great clients. It was like top clients like in fashion, beauty, like entertainment. So from the outside, everything like kind of looked perfect. But then little by little, I could feel that something was getting off a bit. Like there was like, not only like the pace of New York, if everything like goes so fast and then it's work. This, I didn't mind because, for me inside, I wanted to be that career guy that's like, okay, I'm so busy, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, love it, So kept going. Everything was like going well until it was not. In the studio itself, for instance, like I could feel that the environment was not like very healthy, and it started like to have like a toll on me. So it was just like not only the stress, but it was on top of that, like maybe also like psychological harassment. Like I could feel that the environment in general was not good. Like I was not the only one feeling that as well. And so it started like to have a toll not only on me, but on my health. Not only mental health, but physical health. And that's when I started to question, how is it like part of the game also? Like, oh, you want a great career? Is it part of it as well? So I was like, okay, what's happening? Like I'm in New York. I couldn't even like get out of my apartment at some point because like the panic attack were so intense. that I was like, oh, well, that's good, like I'm here and I cannot even get out of my apartment. Or what's the point of all that? And then that's when I started to question that and be like, okay, well, I need to take a decision. Either I move forward and I keep going with that without knowing like where will it end up, or I would just like stop and then focus on myself, see if that's really what I want, and if it's like really how I want to move forward with life. And anyway, my health was like so bad that I decided just to say stop to everything. That was
body
like,
said no.
yeah, body said no, exactly. It was just like one of the most difficult like decision I've ever made, because again, small town boy, like accomplishing his dreams, moving to New York, so-called perfect like career, like from the outside, and then have the strength in a way to be like, okay, it's enough. I'm just gonna put myself first.
I can imagine that must have been very brave and very scary because,
Yeah,
like you said, you really, like, that was the dream. You achieved that dream from the outside. That is like the peak of success.
exactly.
And so what happens when you reach that mountaintop and it doesn't feel or look like you thought it would go, like you thought it would?
Yeah, I think like there is like a bit of disappointment, well, even like a lot. And then after, like you just need to decide, like, and it's either you or either, and I just decided to go with myself. So I came back here against like, all judgments also, because you need to go against that, and also like against like the fear of the unknown, because like, yes, like you are like from your country, but when you come back, it's a kind of, you lose all, like I spent 8 years in New York and I did most of my professional career there. So you need to come back and readapt to a new way of life.
And things are not the way you left them. That's
exactly.
For sure.
You get so estranged, and then from that, a whole new journey started for me. I really got into like a spiritual and kind of consciousness journey, and really kind of went deep into introspection of what I really wanted for myself and how I wanted my life to move forward, to be like moving forward. And that was kind of a long time actually. And then little by little, this completely changed, like the way I see and the way I interact with life events. It's like it's like if I feel more peace of doing it, because I'm not only aligned with myself, I'm aligned with like my inner state. I'm aligned with my action now, just like I won't do certain compromise, and I'm aligned with the vision that I have for my life, and I think that's this alignment that bring me peace. And the thing that is funny as well is like when you feel that kind of peace and that you've gone through, that high and lows and high again, like you see that your reality start to shift in a way that it's possible, and you feel this urge of wanting to share it. And I think that's how we end up with having that conversation, when we met. And because like it's been like just a few months that we met.
Yes.
That's what's magical, and that ties a bit again with how things shift when you start to be aligned with yourself. It's like the right people come into your life, the right opportunities, like the way you see things that you wouldn't see before. It's like it's a whole. And yes, I think that's why I'm here today, because I feel that peace, that inner peace. I don't need to justify myself anymore of, okay, why did I just quit that job or move like that way, or or this other way. No, I don't need to justify myself, because I know that whatever I do it following my heart. And for me, that's the most important. And I feel that's what most and a lot of people should do. And so, yes, this brought me like to the big thing. I love to question everything, especially the big concept of life. And for me now, one of the things I really want to redefine is the concept of success, of what makes someone successful. Because for me, I had that idea of what would make me.
You achieved the blueprint for success on paper.
Exactly. I achieved it on paper, as you said, but it didn't work. So what it is, today. And that's really something that I try to focus on, but I'm sure we'll get into that like deeper later, but that's how really like I got here.
Yeah. What a gift that experience must have been, because if you hadn't gone through that full kind of cycle, you probably wouldn't have, had that perspective and reached this place. So
yeah, true. But the thing is that, as you say, it's a gift today, but at the time, like, it's so scary. You need to go against like so many things, like really like deconstruct everything you've learned. But when you have this ability to take the lessons of that is when it becomes a gift, like really.
Yeah.
So yes.
Nice.
Yeah. Maybe like you can tell us like what was the big shift for you?
How did I get here?
Yeah, how did you get here?
So if I think back through my journey and all of the most kind of pivotal or transformational moments in my life, the one thing that they have in common is that there was always this feeling that I had of I call it my intuition. I don't know if it's the right word, but there was a feeling that something was speaking to me or kind of pulling me in a certain direction or nudging me and saying, this isn't right. And now that I've reached a certain level of experience in life, I can look back on all of those moments, and it's so clear to me that the times where I listened to that voice, things worked out, and the times where I ignored that voice, things did not work out, and life would find a way to kind of teach me some kind of painful lesson or almost force me into a new direction. So now I've really kind of learned that little voice is really worth listening to and really worth, paying attention to, and really worth kind of getting in touch with. Because I think, also the life that we live today is quite distracted, and there's so much going on. So it can be quite difficult to actually tune into ourselves and really kind of find that voice. And maybe the most pivotal of all of those kind of transformational moments, I suppose, is the story of how I ended up in Belgium. And it's kind of a long story, but I had spent my whole working career working in advertising in my home city, Cape Town. And I absolutely loved life in my home city. I still think it's one of the most beautiful places in the world. I loved living so close to nature and, living close to the ocean, the mountain. I loved my friends. But there was always something that was kind of whispering to me, like, there's more out there and you need to go and discover what else is out there. And so I kind of had this feeling that I should take some time and live abroad. And that feeling had kind of been speaking to me throughout my life. Like, there was moments after school where I thought, okay, should I take a gap year? After I finished my studies, I was like, okay, is this the moment? Should I go overseas now? But there was always some reason why I didn't take that leap. Either I just kind of ignored that voice, or, I might have gotten a job offer, or I was in a relationship, or there was always some reason why I just didn't go for it. And then there came a point where I had been working for about 8-9 years, and it really felt like, okay, the stars are now aligning and it's the moment for me to try and go abroad. my relationship ended. I was ready to kind of leave the job that I was in. And so I started applying to jobs all over the place. I'm from South Africa, and so it's kind of difficult to get a work visa. You really need to find a company that's going to sponsor you. So this process of finding work abroad turned out to be a lot more difficult than I had anticipated. I must have spent anywhere from 1 to 2 years just sending out countless applications. I was applying, I was trying everything. I was applying to countries where it's typically kind of more accepted or easier for people from my background to get jobs. So places like Dubai, the Middle East, Asia, Korea, these kinds of places. And I was also being a bit delusional. Like I had always had this weird dream to work in Stockholm, Copenhagen. Probably I even applied to New York as well at some point. And nothing was coming back. I was just sending, a ton of applications every week and just going nowhere, maybe getting 1 or 2 interviews here or there. And then I kind of took a break from all of that. I was like, okay, like I guess it's not meant to be. And a few weeks after I took that break, something actually within my current job happened, and it really just felt like I was in the right place at the right time. And what happened was the Cape Town office of my agency network where I was working basically set up a kind of working partnership with the Belgian office. And through that, there was an opportunity for me to move to Brussels. And I just thought to myself, well, my first thought was like, Brussels, like, didn't know anything about Belgium. Yeah, what is that place? The only thing I knew about Belgium was waffles and chocolate. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I like waffles and chocolate. Let's go. I knew about beer as well.
Beer, yeah.
But I didn't know anything about what it was like to live in Belgium. We know that Belgium is very humble in its storytelling, so it wasn't really on my radar down there at the tip of Africa. But I just thought, like, why the hell not? Like, I've been trying so many other avenues. It's not the solution that I expected, but I mean, like, let's just go and see. So I didn't even get the chance to really kind of visit or anything. I basically just packed up my whole life, and within a couple of months, I kind of just landed here. I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anything about how anything worked. I'd never taken a tram in Europe before. I didn't speak the language. So I really had to kind of rebuild my life from scratch at the age of 32. And, again, a lot of people in my life thought, had these kind of conversations with me about like, wow, like, everyone here is kind of starting to settle down and get married and have kids, and like you're really going to go and start from scratch from the beginning. And for me, it just really felt like the right decision. And now I've been here for 7 years, and I can honestly look back at that moment and be like, wow, that is, if I hadn't listened to that voice and hadn't taken that chance, I wouldn't at all be enjoying the wonderful life that I've been able to build here now. So I'm really, really grateful for that moment and that chapter. I've met such amazing people on my journey here. I'm still working the same job that moved me over here. And I'm just super, super happy. So that's been a really wonderful chapter. And I guess for me, the big lesson is always just like, when that voice is speaking to you, are you listening, and are you prepared to do something that feels scary and to kind of take that leap into the unknown to follow that voice?
I love with what you said about, following your intuition and listening, being able to listen to that voice, because I feel like our stories kind of meet, but at the same time, we didn't go through the same path. Me, I had to go to really high and low, and just like to be like, okay, now I have no choice than to listen to this voice. But
you hit the breaking point.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it was a more natural thing to, and you were just like, okay, well, I feel, my intuition is telling me to do that, so I'm gonna explore that. Me, which is like funny also, is that I created the noise myself. going abroad, just like working, not questioning, going out, having fun. And
You were living the life.
I was living the life, and so much noise that I lost myself and that I didn't even know I had that voice, I feel like you were more already like connected to it. And then being able like to see already, like to take your decision, like seeing these opportunities like showing up. And I think that illustrates also like very well when you start to be aligned with that intuition. It's not really like, yes, life works, it's magic, but it's just like that you are in a space where you can see these opportunities and take them. Which, like, on the contrary, like if you have too much noise and you are blinded by that and you cannot see these opportunities and not like jump on it. So I think that's like very magical, like the way you connected, like,
I mean, don't get me wrong, because there were 1 or 2 moments also before that where I ignored the voice and things went horribly wrong, but those are going to be stories for another day.
Yeah, but then as you say, like life like always finds this way to teach you the lessons, and then you can just like, take it or leave it. And that's so funny, because that's what like brought us here in a way, like, that's also like life working its magic too. But I don't know. It's like even like the way we connected, we started the conversation, but then we were like, oh, we like, talk about the same thing. And I was like, okay, I remember us like having our martini, like at the Oxton, and be like, where is the mic?
Dirty martinis.
Exactly. Yeah. Where is the mic? Let's start a podcast like now, you know? And then we were like, okay, you know what? Like, okay, let's just do it. And that's how we ended up here. So I think that's magical.
Yeah. The thing that's common in both of our stories and experiences is that at some point we both had the feeling like things weren't quite working out as we had expected them to. Our lives weren't exactly fitting the plans or the blueprints that we had envisioned. Both of us were able to kind of tune into ourselves, or, we're kind of forced to tune into ourselves. We both took a leap of faith and trusted in the path of life. And now we're kind of both feeling like the cycle is starting to repeat itself, where maybe we're having a similar feeling of, okay, where do we kind of go from here? The world is shifting. The world is not exactly as we had expected it to be. And, things are shifting kind of at pace and at scale. And so instead of kind of going through it alone, we wanted to create this space to find others like us, and to really talk through it together, share experiences, share tools, find inspiration, and see how can we actually reimagine, reshape, and essentially rewrite those blueprints and do things differently on our own terms.
Yeah. And I think like for today's, as you said, like in both of our stories, we can see like similarities, and maybe like that's something that everyone like can apply. So kind of as a key takeaways from our conversation. So I think like we can start with like the discomfort that we felt and the way we started like to question ourselves. Is there something more? Then after listening to that little voice that we have like in our head, like type it to like our intuition, and see like what is it saying to us. And so it's gonna like maybe unlock some opportunities that you really didn't see, and then maybe move toward that direction. Then at the end, trust the timing of life also. We don't have it all figured out now, but at some point maybe we will. And that's kind of like the game, and how you catch the opportunities as well. And yes, being open to other possibilities in general in every area of your life, and let a bit of the magic of life, as I said, already happens. You know?
Let it surprise you. I think that's the interesting thing about both of our stories. And I think that you hear this time and time again, is the path might not, and in fact probably won't look like what you expect. So you should be open to letting life surprise you and letting that path reveal itself. You know, it's not that we need to have the answers perfectly formed or perfectly in sight before we take that next step. So yeah, I think that's the lesson.
Yeah, the future is very exciting.
Yeah. Because we never know exactly what life might bring our way, we thought it would be fun to end each episode with a little ritual.
Yeah.
And the ritual is a fortune cookie reveal. It's going to be a reminder that wisdom can come from anywhere, and that life might be waiting to surprise us if we know where to look.
Allez, let's do it. ASMR.
Yes.
Okay.
Cute.
The only rose without a thorn is friendship.
Okay.
So we'll leave that to you. If it resonates, just
Take it.
Take it.
If not, leave it.
Exactly.
Thank you for listening. This is As If We Know podcast, and you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
See you next time.
Bye.